game. I shot ya. I shot ya.
And shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the lost sheep of Israel. And today we're going to be going through a very, very interesting teaching. We have a lot of people, and a lot of people, that say they teach, and they say they teach Bible. But when they say they teach Bible, you still have to be very cautious on what they're doing and what they are saying. The reason is many will read the Bible, and a lot of them take away from the Bible, and they teach it saying that they are gods. They are gods. We have to look at that. We have to see where it comes from and people who does it. You have many camps teach that. You have churches teach you. You have people come individually saying that they are gods based on what they have read in the Bible. And I always tell you, and I always keep professing it, and I'm going to continue. You need to watch and pay attention who you learn from. You got people who want to brag on statements on how well they know, and they trip and confuse themselves going through the Bible. The biggest thing in the world. And they say they understand the Bible. Some will do that and discredit everything Paul wrote in his letters. Some will sit there and discredit the entire New Testament. Some will discredit the Apocrypha. Some will discredit the Old Testament and only hold to the first 5 books, showing you clearly they don't understand the Bible. However, many of us like to hear certain things that they're saying, so we'll sit there and be that entertainment. So that's why I always say this channel goes up and down. We are only here for the people who truly is seeking God. If you're here for entertainment, channel goes up and down. You can go over to the camps. They will entertain you with the spaceships and everything of that. If you want to see the entertainment and breakdancing and all that, you go over to the churches. But here we want to learn what the scripture says. And as I said, they said they are gods. So we have to look at this. We have to understand where it came from and how they came up with this. So I'm going to invite you over to, we're going to look at Psalms. We're going to look at 82, and we're going to start at verse 6. 82 and verse 6. And it says this, and we're going to see some real clear things in Scripture. It says, I have said, ye are gods. Now, the one who is saying I is God saying this. So he said, I said, ye are gods. And that's the end of that thought. That's the end of the thought, because we see the semicolon there. It says, and all of you are children of the Most High. But we're going to find out some real peculiar things here. So before we read, actually, I'm going to read 7, then I want to show you something. I'm going to read 7, then I want to show you something. And it says here in verse 7, it says this. It says, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Telling you right up front, you're gods, but you're going to fall like this. But why is he saying it even in that way? I'm going to show you something where they really mess up at. We want to look at this, and we're going to start at verse 1. We're going to start at verse 1, and then we're going to start moving down into what we need to do to dig down into these verses. In Psalms 82, the same chapter, but Psalms 82, but we're going to start at verse 1. And I want you to clearly get something. And it says, God, the topic is God, Him, he standeth in the congregation of the mighty. Who? God. And the reason it even got mighty there, because mighty is also letting you know Nimrod was a mighty hunter. He was mighty. Keep that in mind. I want you to keep that, pin that, just put it on the side. And it says, and he judges, he teaches among the gods, those little G's. So I want you to understand something. And you're gonna see why he's saying what he's saying when you look at verse 6. And it says, how long will ye judge unjustly? Keep that in mind. You're going to teach unjustly, because that's what judge mean. You're going to teach. It has a couple other meanings, but one of the right here we know it clearly is talking about, and how long will you teach unjustly? It's clear as day, but he's going to clear this up. And accept the persons of the wicked. Selah. Bingo. This is the part where they not showing you or telling you, and you grab that one verse and not understanding the verse within itself to see why he said that. And we're going to see in a second why he said that, to see why the conversation went the way it did. It says, defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy. No, you don't do that. You try to rob the needy and you don't care about the fatherless. But that's okay. But watch this. It says, deliver the poor and the needy and rid them out of the hand of the wicked. No, they're actually in the hand of the wicked because you're the wicked. But who are these people he's talking about? We got to see. We got to see. And it says, they know not, told you, dumb as a box of rocks, neither will they understand. The problem is this. People is still going to continue, because we have camps that teach that they are gods. And I don't care what I personally say or I personally show you in scripture. No matter what, people are still going to run over to these camps that teach these doctrines because they like the entertainment. But so wherever your heart is, don't worry, your body going to follow. And the same thing, when he comes there and you thinking, oh, well, I was just using that for entertainment, he going to say, hell, I do not know you. You're a worker of iniquity. See, if it jives with your heart, that's what you're really into. That's the spirit you have. The reason why people sit there and say, well, I like scary movies. That's what your heart is into. It's wicked. Because it shouldn't jive with that. And it's telling you here, they don't understand. That's why all this craziness is going all over the place. It says they walk in darkness. Now, I just went through this with my KJBU kids, and they know what darkness. I'm talking. They don't have no knowledge. They dumb as a box of rocks. And it says all the foundations of the earth are out of course. He's making this clear. All our foundations is done. Why is he saying that? Because it's clearly telling you. Actually, you want to tell you what? Let's go over to Genesis chapter 3, verse 4. Get some understanding. Because we're going to see why many of us sit there and say we're gods. And he's saying himself, you're gods. But why? But why? We're going to find out. Let's look at this. In Genesis chapter 3, picking up at verse 4, it says, the serpent said unto the woman, ye should not surely die. God saying you're going to die like a bunch of men. Did not he say this? We looking right at the verse. He said, but ye should die like me, one of the princesses. You're going to fall like one of them rulers that believe this, you're God. But Satan told you, you ain't going to die. You got all these people teaching, saying that they are gods, and they gonna die. I hate to bust bubbles, but all flesh is gonna die. All flesh gonna die. But Satan telling you, you ain't gonna die. So let's look at this. It says, for God do know if in the day ye learn thereof that you gonna eat this doctrine, then your eyes should be open, and ye shall be as gods. Bingo. So the thing is this: you're gods, meaning you have the knowledge of good and evil. That's it. That's it. But he goes on more here. As they're sitting there talking about this, let's go a little bit more into this, because you're going to die like men. But let's go over here to Isaiah. We're going to look at 41. We're going to pick it up at verse 22. We'll pick this up right up over here. We're going to dig more into this. And it says, let them bring them forth and show us what shall happen. This is almost just comical. And the problem is we keep, and it's really prevalent in men, we try to put ourselves on these high pedestals in being a God. Let them bring them forth and show us what shall happen. Let them show the former things what they be, that we may consider them and know the latter end of them. Gonna die. You want to know the latter end? Gonna die. Or declare us the things to come. Meaning what? They can't declare nothing to come. They'll sit there. If they were so much of a God, if you're a God or a God, then you don't need to buy a newspaper or look at news clippings or look at television to give predictions on something that's actually getting ready to happen. You're a God. You know this. You know these things. But let's dig a little bit more as he's talking in the position in the mouth of God. He said, show the things that are to come hereafter. Exactly what I'm talking about. That we may know that ye are gods. You see the point? See, if you're a God or you like a God, you can tell us things that's going to happen hereafter in pinpoint. But people will sit there, you're going off of somebody else's credit. This is our problem. We're going off of someone else's credit. This is the biggest issue here. So he's saying this, showing the things that come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed. And they saying that to where most people don't know what dismayed means. So let me unhighlight this and highlight just that, because I don't want to make sure we clearly get what's going on. So he said that we may be dismayed, but he said that we be afraid in knowing that we have this person as a God. He can sit there and tell you that these things is going to happen, and you don't see it on the news, you don't see it in no paper, you don't see it anywhere. And this person tells you this thing, and all of a sudden these things happen. You'll be dismayed. You'll be afraid. Like, man, this guy, who is this guy? And remember it together. This is interesting. We go down to verse 24. And it says, remember, ye are of nothing. Oh, but you're saying you're God. See, this is the problem. A lot of the men and a lot of the people try to push themselves to and sitting there putting themselves on a pedestal and saying that they are gods. I'm just here to make a correction, because you're not. You know the difference between good and evil, but you want to put that good or evil based on the level of God. This is our issue. See, a person that sit there and they even want to call themselves a preacher or whatever, and then they want people to reverence them and take care of them and give them money and all this kind of stuff. Talking about their gods. It says they work for naught. An abomination is he that chooses you. Bingo. These is nothing but these people are abominations. But we're gods, right? See, but we gods. We supposed to be gods. I had a guy some years back. He called me up, and hey, what's up, God? What's up, God? I said, hi. Yeah, we God. No, dude. No, you got me mixed up. No, man, you're a God. No, dude. No. You profess whatever you want to profess. Don't put that silliness on me. God don't die. Verse 25. We're going to look at some of this. He says that I have raised up one from the north, and he came, and he shall come. From the rising of the sun shall he call upon my name. He shall come upon princesses and upon mortar, and comparing the potter treadeth clay. You know them princes are going to die. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. We have to understand what he's talking about. But he's going to raise up one from the north. He's going to call upon his name as one that's going to treadeth upon the clay. And you know, we are not potters, but we're going to let him explain some stuff. Verse 26. He's saying this. And he said, who have declared from the beginning that we may know. People want to call themselves gods. Can't do this. How you going to declare something from the beginning because you wasn't there? So we looking at these things, and before time that we may say he is righteous. Interesting. There is none that showeth, yea, there is none that declareth, yea, there is none that heareth your words. So as you sitting there talking this trap, all this kind of crap, it's not there. So before time says righteous, and none can show this. So they have to read papers, or they Googling. They got to Google this, Google that, looking at the news. No one hears your words of wisdom because you're getting your words of wisdom from Google and newspapers and news clippings. If you're a god, as some be on the corners and in different places, the Bible tells you don't put no markings on your body. So did you command the tat to become on your arm and it was so? Or did you commanded the tattoo to be on your arm and you went to a place and had the tattoo put on your arm and then you paid a ransom for that? Or did you command the tattoo to become up on your chest and it appeared? Did you command the police not to arrest and they still arrest? Did they give wisdom and nothing came to pass? Have they created from nothing? That's your key. Have they created from nothing? Because that's what God do. So we need to know the difference between good and evil. And some don't even know that's what our issue is. See, the Most High God created the heaven and the earth. He created the heaven and the earth from nothing. And all the life within the earth, he created the stars and the animals, including the fish of the sea. He created many different trees and flowers and rivers and lakes. The Most High God created many different birds and insects, and Spirit of God created things seen and things unseen. Things seen is temporary. This is how he set it up. So the things that are not seen are eternal. All this was done on a commandment of the Most High God. In his spirit, his desire went forth from his own lips and created them. The Most High God is the very thing that we call life. So whatever life he speaks to bring into existence, and he produces life from within itself, giving you the same example. Actually, let's do this. Let's go here. Let's go here. 1 second. I'm going to go to Genesis. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 1. And I want to pick it up at verse 11. And it's saying this because he's doing something. He's doing something to what's going to help us out. And it says, and God said, he's speaking. He said, let the earth bring forth grass and herb yielding seed and fruit, trees yielding seed after his kind. Fruit trees yielding fruit trees, and is yielding seed after his kind, whose seed is within itself. In the same thing, he's trying to show you the same silhouette picture on what God is doing. And it says this at the time, and upon the earth, and it was so. So he's showing you a similitude on how God works. So God works, desires is spoken, and it brought forth grass, people carrying seed to produce the same kind after his own kind, but because they have seed within themselves, the same as it is written, which may cause some things that, as you see, that is revealed in this parable here. Complete parable. But we gotta understand it. So we got to unravel some of these things to see where people went off. We're going to go to 1 Corinthians and we're going to go to 1 Corinthians. We're going to pick this up at chapter 15. And we're going to look at verse 45. In verse 45, we're going to help us out. And actually, let me take all this out to where we can get this a little bit better. In verse 45, it says this. It says, well, I'm going to highlight everything, but we might end up having to break it up. It says, and so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. You following me? And we're going to find out some really interesting things about this. So we're going to tear this down to make sure this is clear. Because you can see, even with that semicolon, that's the end of that thought. The first man was made a living soul. And it was brought forth. These bodies, as it's saying, these bodies will not actually. Let's put something else up here. I want to make sure we put something else up to where we can get this, because I want to make sure you clearly understand where I'm coming from and where this Bible is speaking of. So we're gonna go to Genesis chapter 1, we're going to look at verse 12 also. And I want you to look at this. And it says, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and tree yielding fruit, whose seed was within itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So, what was happening here? Because people will tell you that all people came from the black race. That's stupidity on top of stupidity on top of stupidity on top of stupidity. But this is where he's talking about, where you got the Asian races, the Indian races, the white races. You got all these people. That's all it's talking about, because it's a dang parable. That's why you can go to certain countries and you'll see all these people is one people. You can go to China and you'll see all these people look the same way. You follow me? You follow me? See, that's the key in what's screwing everybody up, because they haven't seen that is within itself. This is why you can go out there in the wilderness and you can see lions and tigers and bears not mixing with anything, and they haven't seed within themselves who will reproduce the same kind of everything after his own kind. The same as you see, if you have two Asians producing children, they're going to produce another Asian child of its own kind. You're going to have white people going to produce the same white person after their kind. The same as a black person going to produce people after their kind. It's the same thing. It's telling you the same thing. In that first one was made a living soul. That's the interesting part. But we need to look at this other part here, because that was the end of the thought. That was the end of that thought there. So we got to see what's going on here, and what screwed everything up on everybody else. So we got to look at the rest of the verse. It says, "The last man was made a quickening spirit." Interesting, isn't it? So we need to highlight it different. So we need to see that. So where he did this in verse 11 and 12, I'm going to go over here and we're going to go back to Genesis. We're going to take this chapter out and I'm going to go back to 1. And that last man was made a quickening spirit. So I want to show you things that most people don't go through. And you'll see this in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. It says this. It says, and God said, he spoke again. And the word has to produce. That's his desire that's coming out of his mouth. And it says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Wow. Interesting, is it? See, this is not, actually, let me put this here. This is not this one. So I want to make sure we're clear. Let me go here. Let me go here just to make sure we're clear. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 8. Because I want to make sure you don't get this mixed up. People get it mixed up. Women get it mixed up. Everybody get it mixed up. But let's make sure we look at this and precept this all together. So when we look at this in Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22, it's not talking about this. The Spirit of God possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. Not that. Just keep that in mind. The Spirit of God was possessed and controlled and the possessor of his own desires, meaning what God speaks, the word goes forth and actually produces this of itself. As the grass and the trees have seeds within itself, God's seed was doing the same in the similitude for us, to where we can see the works of God, where we can see it in the physical, and then we can relate it back to the spiritual. That's all he was doing. So he says this in verse 23. He says this in 23. And we'll look at that. And it says, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning or ever the earth was. You see how he's playing this. See, the Spirit of God was set up from everlasting. The same, actually, let's do this. I do this and I come back. I'm going to do this and come back. We're going to go to John. We're going to go to John chapter 17. Just to help us out some. We're going to look at verse 5. And the reason it says this, so you write this down and help us out on this. So it says, and now, O Father, glorify thou me in thy own self with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. Interesting, isn't it? And you still see over here, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So the image of God, male and female, created he them. However, the Spirit was set up from the beginning, everlasting. So that's not them in that verse. Because we know flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Are you with me? So let's start working through this. Well, let's start working through this, and we need to make sure we have our pens and everything, and to where we can get this and go through it and check it, and make sure that we stay completely good with everything that's going on. So we're going to see some things that's here, and then I'm going to relate them back over on the other side. I'm going to relate them to the other side. So let's look at this. Let's go to verse 24 in Proverbs. Proverbs 8:24. And it says, when there were no depths, I was brought forth. Interesting, isn't it? Because he spoke these things to existence. Where there were no fountains abounding with water. See, he's telling you things physically to where you can understand what he did spiritually. See, it's the same thing as he set up heaven. You can see one that was spiritual and one that was physical, which you can technically see. Actually, let's do this to where we can all see this together and why we do what we do. In Second Esdras, excuse me, Second Esdras, picking it up at chapter 2, we're going to look at verse 13. It's the verse we actually want. It says, go and ye shall receive. Pray for a few days unto you, that may be shortened. The kingdom is already prepared for you. Watch. I want you to understand why Uncle Idris is saying it. Even it's already prepared, because when he created the heaven and the earth, he has separated it, but both of them was created at the same time. But when Yahushua say he's going to prepare a place, he's going to prepare one place for you that he has chosen, because many is called, but few are chosen. So when he go prepare that one place for that one particular person, but we can see where we messed up. See, the same thing is, if the kingdom is already prepared for us, look at this. I want to show you something. Let's look at this, and we're going to see something. We're going to go to Matthew, pick it up at chapter 11, and we're going to go over to verse 12, and it's going to reveal some beautiful information that we need to know. It says, and from the days of John the Condemner until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. Talking about the earth, not in the kingdom of heaven. So you following the point? He did them both at the same time. But the parable is what screwed everybody up. The parable of what jacked everybody up here. So here we suffer it violence, and violence take it by force. Not in the kingdom of heaven where God is. You follow me? In here, because we was mixed, meaning we was mixed, we had some that was obedient and some disobedient. You follow me? Because it says no fountains abounding with water. So let's look at this as a whole. Let's look at this as a whole. So the statement I just made, we need to validate the statement that was made. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to see this where people sit there and lied again, and we're going to straighten this lie out. And we're going to go to Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to pick it up at verse 38. Actually, it's already highlighted. It says, "And a mixed multitude went up also with them, their flocks, their herds, and even very much cattle." But this mixed multitude, it wasn't a mixture of people. They said, see, that's what the lie that people teach. So see, this mixed multitude, it was many different people. It's not the truth. It was a mixed multitude. Some believe and some didn't. Why do we even say that? Because I can tell you that specifically because once they was in the wilderness, they challenged God and tested God 10 times based on their non-belief. Based on their non-belief. Let's look at it a little bit more. Let's look at it a little bit more. We're going to go to Nehemiah with this mixed multitude. We're going to go to Nehemiah. We're going to look at chapter 13. And picking it up at verse 3. Highlighted. And it says, "And it came to pass when they had heard the law." Keep this in mind. They heard the law. They heard the words of God. "That they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude." Some believed, some didn't. That's the whole point. This is the point, and even within us, this is our issue. Some believe the infallible entire word of God, and some is going to pick and choose. Some is going to look for this other type of whatever they want to call higher knowledge, and they're going to see outside books to validate their thought pattern. Mixed multitude. It says, "Seek ye out of the book of the Lord." It don't say seek ye out of the books of the Lord. It says seek ye out of the book of the Lord. So why are we looking for all these other books? Because we're looking for something that we desire. And since we desire that, we're doing just like that serpent did to Eve. But that mixed multitude didn't know how to follow directions. Because it's telling you, that mixed multitude heard the law, and he had to separate Israel from them. Let's look at what they heard the law, because it's saying they heard the law. So let's hear the law that God wanted them to do, and get a complete understanding of this. And it's real simple. And we're gonna go to Deuteronomy chapter 10, picking it up at verse 12, and he says this. And we're gonna have to turn another page to get everything, but it says, "And God, and now Israel, which had to be separated from the mixed multitude, what doeth the Spirit of thy God require of thee?" So we got to see what's required, which is this law, what he's going to lay down. It says, "But to desire the Spirit of thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to promise him, and to serve the Spirit of thy God with all thy heart, in all thy soul," all your body. You got to do this wholeheartedly. So you follow me? You follow me? So this is the words of God, and if you have the word of God, then we can sit there and see what he's spoken. That's why we see when we look in a lot of scripture and people try to sit there and jive other stuff together, and it don't work, because you're going to find contradictions in that way. But when you go through it the plain and simple way of precepts, you're going to get the very essence on what you actually need, the very thing of life to help you to succeed, not just here, but to get to that second part that you need to do. See, in John chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. People try to tell you that was this man. That's not the truth. But people will argue that point. Why? Because the word may not be for them. So he will keep them in confusion. Because that's just saying was the word. And the word was with God. It's telling you, the Lord possessed me in the beginning of before his works of all. It's telling you this stuff. But people is telling you things to keep you, and they try to make you focus on them personally. We're God's, so you have to be obedient to me. You're God's, you guys are my subservients. You guys are subservient to me. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. So we see that it says, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So, because the thoughts and everything they do, he's speaking it. So he speaks it out. And he goes on more. He says, and the same was in the beginning with God. And it says, all things were made by him, who? By the word of God. And without him that was made. But people will keep telling you this is a man. And I want you to sit there and make a side note here and say, well, I'll tell you what. Let's look at the fairness of God. If God actually put seed in Mary and he produced the actual physical fleshly son, which is Yahweh, some will call him Jesus. Some will call him Yahushua. Many people call him many different things. But let's say he did this. Will God be just because flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God? No. God has got to be completely wrong. I want you to understand, even how I'm saying it, it sounds crazy, but I want to tell you how crazy that is by saying it. Because you wouldn't think it's crazy, because some people say, I wouldn't speak those words, but I want to show you how crazy that is. Because he wouldn't be right for doing that. You can call God then a low down dirty dog. That he's going to produce a son that cannot come back to him. It's impossible. Because he already said flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And we know Psalms 89:34 says, my covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that has gone from my lip. Flesh and blood will not inherit the kingdom of God. And God said, I change not. So that will make him 100% wrong. So when we see this here, we know that can't be talking about a man. Let's look at verse 4. It says, in him was life. God speaks life. And the life was the light of all men. But we're going to die like men. I want you to think about all this. So when there was no depths, no fountains with water, the Most High God brought forth his word of wisdom, and his desires. His word was so diverse in its doing, in its administration and operations, but the same thing was that same spirit from God, no one else. Not some other God they want to sit there and say some other, it's three gods and all. No, get out of that. Because this is the purpose of this teaching. Let's look at this. Then we're going to go down to 25. Let's look at 25. He said this, and he said, before the mountains were settled, before the hills were brought forth, while yet comparing, he had not made the earth, nor fields, nor highest part of dust of the world, when he prepared the heavens I was there. I was there. Just to keep this in mind, I want to show you something. Because he's saying before all this stuff happened, I want to show you something. I want you to keep stuff in mind to where we don't get slipped up. I want to show you. I want to show you something so we won't get slipped up nowhere. So we're going to go to Isaiah. We're going to look at chapter 55. And I just want to make sure we run into the precepts to keep everything in place. And it's all right here. I actually highlighted it again. And it says, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. In the beginning was the word. It shall not return unto me void. Interesting, is it? It's going to produce something. That's the power of God, not little g's, capital G. It says, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I send it. Wow. Are you following this? And it says this back over here, back in Proverbs. It's saying, when he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep. Wow. Well, watch this. This is real something he's going to say that's really crazy. But you just think about it. I say it's crazy because it's really profound when you can actually go out to these places. Because I know some people are not where oceans are. But if you can go there, it's really, if you just stand there and you just watch it, it really is profound. And it will really boggle you if you just sat and you thought about it as you see it. And it says this. It says, when he gave the sea its decree, he gave it orders, and where it shall not go past. It says, and the water shall not pass his commandment. That's the crazy. I'm talking about you can sit at the ocean and you just look. You just look. My mom says, she used to take us out to the ocean and all kind of things and look at stuff. But the main thing is, if you just look, and you see all this body of water, it's no end. It's no end. And all that water can come into land and cover everything. But right here, he's telling you, he gave that sea a decree on where it should not go past. God did that. But we having guys calling themselves their gods. See, no matter what I'm showing you right now, keep in back of your head that people call themselves gods who can't do they can't even bust a grape, but they telling you they're gods. And I'm just showing you some things what God did. So what they try to do is put themselves equal to God. But let's go on. It says this. It says this in verse 30. It says, when I was by him, I was brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. Why? Because when he was brought forth, he did not return empty at all, seeing the works of God. So God will show you things physical to where you can understand what he's talking about spiritually. Even it says this in John. It says this in John. I'm going to show you something in John. We're going to look at John chapter 14. And I'm going to show you something there. Because I want you to keep all this in mind the entire time. Don't discredit any verse. And I want to unhighlight this and unhighlight this because I want to focus on this. And Yahushua is speaking, but we know Christ is speaking through him. And it says, believe me that I am in the Creator, and the Creator in me. or else believe me for the very work's sake. It's going to go out and accomplish all that is pleased. He was the potter that created this piece of clay, and he went in that clay and he did the very works, and it didn't return to him void. Are you following me? So we see the works of God that was in this man. We see the works of God that was in this man. We are his work that he produced. It says this even more when we look at a couple other things. We'll see this here. We'll look at this here. We'll go to Ephesians and pick it up at chapter 2 and get a better understanding in verse 10. It says this. It says, for we are his workmanship. For we are his workmanship. His handiwork, created in the anointed one of salvation unto good works. You follow me? This is what we are done. We are created his workmanship unto good works. He said, let me create this second Adam in my image. But we done went to our heads and think we are gods. You created in the image to good works, not God. The image of good works so he can exhibit his works through his handiwork. It's not complex, but people make it complex because people want to put themselves above everything. They put themselves above everything. But it goes on more. It says, which God had before ordained that we should walk in them. Let's go back over and get some more. Excuse me. Let's get some more. And it says this. It says, then I was by him, comparing one brought up with him. And I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. But he's going to get really interesting here. Why? Because he's going to say some profound things. And I'm going to read a couple of verses here. And it says this. Rejoicing in the habitable parts of the earth. Rejoicing in the habitable parts of the earth. I'm reading it a couple of times because I want that to sink in. The reason I want to sink in, because if he's rejoicing in the habitable parts, and if we are the temples of God, to where he can dwell in us, we can rejoice in him, as it said in John chapter 14. We are from the earth. So and you see that's the end of that thought there. These things I want you to understand what's going on. And watch how he says this. And my delights were with the sons of men. That's why it tells you that in 1 Corinthians. Actually, let me just show it to you. I'm just going to run there real quick, and just to show you what I'm talking about. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and look at verse 16. Just want you to see something in this highlight. It says, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. And his delight were with the sons of men, which he had created in the habitable parts of the earth. That's all he's saying. But some of us got so high-minded, we say we're gods. And the main reason we need to be doing something, let's read this down some more and get some more information, then we're going to tear some of this down. in verse 32, it says, now for that reason, hearken unto me. Wow. This is serious. If he's in you, we have to hearken unto him. I want you to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Don't change it. Keep that focus. Don't change it. If he's in you and the Spirit of God dwelleth in us, we have to hearken unto him, O ye children. Wow. He goes on more and he says, ye children, for blessed, knowledge is given, are they that keep his ways. He's clear. Knowledge is given to them that keep his ways. It says here, instruction, be wise and refuse not. Let's look at something. I want to show you something. So, and why even that's being said there, well, I want to show you. So I want to show you something. We're going to go to Exodus. Picking it up at 19 and going right to verse 5. And he did something, and he tells you right here, he says, now for that reason, all this stuff I've done, providing ye will obey my voice in works. Keep my covenant. Then, not just you one and you it, you keep my covenant, then. See, I'm not the controller of how this is written. But I can emphasize on words. I can emphasize and make you focus on something that's there. And that's what I'm just taking the liberty of doing. I'm taking the liberty of doing that. And if it was something against it, I promise you, he will get on me about it. That I promise you. But he's telling you, you obey my voice in works and keep my covenant, then. Not, oh, we're gods and we can go do whatever we want to do, and we're gods. No, he's not saying that. We got to walk in his ways. And the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Then ye should be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Now he's making this clear. Now this is clear. But let's look at this. Let's go back to Corinthians. We're going to pick up something. And let's get some understanding. It says, howbeit that was not first, which was spiritual. I'm trying not to laugh. But howbeit that was not first, which is spiritual, but that which is natural, from the earth. From the earth. But let's get a little bit more information there. And afterwards, that which is spiritual. Get it. I get it. I understand it. Now we still see more and more where now we getting closer and closer and closer and closer to the truth. But what I always do here, I'm going to walk you and we're going to get a full understanding beside, this, that. No, you need to have a full understanding. You don't sit there and just say, I want the chicken. Your mom say you're gonna have some chicken, you're gonna have some peas, you're gonna have some cornbread, you're gonna have a salad. This is what we do. So we look at this in verse 47. It says the first man is of the earth, earthly. The first man. Earthly. And it says the second man is of the Lord from heaven. And it's telling you that, which when we go right back, just to keep in mind, Genesis 1 and 27. God created man in his own image. In the image God created he him. So now we understand a lot more what he's doing. And watch what he did to this second Adam, this second people. See, when we see back in 11 and 12, he didn't do what you're going to see what he's going to say to this one. Because what he said to this one was something specific. We need to see this. We need to understand this. So let's see what's happening here. So let's go down to verse 28. And he blessed them. So he gave them knowledge. He gave them information. He gave them understanding on what they need to do. This is what is going on here. So we got to understand this here to see what he's talking about. Watch what he says here in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. He's going to give him some information. Watch this. Because he blessed them. So he's giving them information. It says, and God said unto them, he says, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Wow. Subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowls of the air, over every living thing that moves upon the earth. He gave this second Adam this information. He gave the second Adam this information. But this first one, this heaven here on earth, was taken by violence. Because when they tried to take it in heaven, Michael kicked them out. So the problem became here is where we'll see where Israel or Israelites have questions. I'm going to show you one of the questions that was asked. I'm going to show you this. Just a side note, just to keep in your pocket. Just a side note that happened. Because a lot of people ask this question, so we need to show it because it do be asked. It do be asked, so we can show it. So in Acts chapter 1, we're going to look at verse 6. And it says, when they, for that reason, had come together, they asked him, saying, Lord, will thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? After we screwed it up. And we won it back and we screwed it all up. After we did all this stuff, we screwed it up. But then we want it back right now. That's why he says that in verse 7. He said, it is not for you to know the time or the season which the Father had put in his own power. Why? Because we screwed it up. He gave us information in the beginning. Right there in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. He did that. And what did we do? We screwed it up. But then you have people who go around and say, we are gods. We know the right between good and evil, which we got from the devil, and we still screwed it up. You follow me? Let's look at something. Let's go down and see. That's what it says. The second man is from the Lord of heaven. The first man is earthly and doing earthly things, worshiping things of this world. He told us, think about it. I want you to really just take your time and think about some of this stuff. He told us not to make any graven images. I don't have to say anything. Go to any camp, go to any church, see his graven images there. It's without being saying anything. Without saying anything. You see it. He told us not to worship things of this earth. You got people worshiping money, cars. You got people even worship their bodies. All you got to do, go to Facebook and Instagram. I believe they got Snap. I don't know if they do, but I'm pretty sure they got it on Snapchat. I think that's what they call it, Snapchat and stuff like that. And you're going to see women and some men, but women mainly, they taking pictures with the camera pointed at a mirror and it's pointing back to them. And they want to show their buttocks. They want to turn to the side to where you see their buttocks. You take the picture. Then they post it. Take a picture. Post it. Oh, girl, I look cute today. Post it. And you go on their Facebooks and it's full of those pictures. And the same thing, I never forget, because it still shocks me to this day. One of my deacons sent me a picture, and the girl said, "Excuse me." I believe I'm paraphrasing. She said that excuse me that I look so good. Something to that effect. Are you serious? This is things we do. We'll worship anything. You have more, and I'll tell you something else that'll shock a lot of people, but it's a true fact, and you can actually even check the world's specifics on this. You have more women who were younger, and people seen these women as some of the most beautiful women in schools and colleges and walking around today. Majority of them is unmarried, then married. It's a 90% where they are unmarried. 10% of them are married, but 90% is unmarried. You can go check the statistics. You'll see it all day long. Some will say it's a little bit higher, but I just use 90 just to be safe. And why is that? Because they think they are so good looking that any man should be blessed or happy that they have them. A man can sit there, what you bring to the table? Look at me. Like what she's saying is, I'm a god. I'm a goddess. Really. She's worshiping herself as a god, and she wants you to worship her as that. And you have men do it too. You don't have men doing those pictures clippings, but you see men out there doing that. So this information was given, and we supposed to have control over the world. So the wars, even today, they're letting you know we're on Earth. So it's letting you know that there's no rest here. But to see a silhouette picture of what rest looks like, you can see it when David subdued it. He subdued the earth. Actually, let's go here and let's look at some of this. Actually, let me do this part. Put it a little bit faster doing it this way. Put a little bit faster doing it this way. Yeah. We're going to go to Ecclesiasticus 47. 47. We're going to park over here at verse 13. And it's telling you this right here. And it says Solomon reigned in a peaceable time. Why? His daddy put in work. He subdued that place. His daddy put work in. And if you remember Genesis 1:28, what did it say? It said subdue it and have dominion over it. Keep that in mind. Actually, I want to tell you what. I want to do something. I'm going to use this middle one. Because I want to put in First Chronicles. I want to show you something. Here. First Chronicles 18. And we're going to look at verse 1. Why? Because I want to show you something here that's actually going to be a trip. But you see, Solomon, he lived a peaceable time and was honored, for God made all quiet around and about him, that he might build a house in his name and prepared his sanctuary forever. You see it plain as day, but watch this. How wise was thou in thy youth, comparing a flood, getting into these doctrines, filled with understandings, thy soul covered the whole earth and filleth it with dark parables. So that's what he do, but guess what? What Solomon do? We're going to see what his daddy did. In Chronicles chapter 18, verse 1, it says this. It's going to clearly tell you what David did. It says, now after it came to pass that David smote the Philistines, subdued them. Bingo. He subdued them and took Gath and the towers of the land of the Philistines. And he smote Moab. The Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts. David's not out here to play games. He's not here to play games. David smote Halazar, the king of Zobah, in Hamath. He went to establish dominion. Oh, he said and had dominion over it. He established dominion by the river Euphrates. Think David playing? No, David putting in work. David took from him 1,000 chariots and 7,000 horses. Doctrines, but that's okay. Just to let you know. And we got more than 45 plus thousand today. And 20,000 footmen. David also hired all the chariot horses, but reserved of them 100 chariots. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to help Halazar, king of Zobah, David put in work on him and slew of the Syrians 22,000 men. Told you, David not out to play games. He's not out to play no games. But the one you want to focus on is 1 and 2. He's showing you a similitude where Solomon had rest. Showing you a similitude where Solomon had clear rest. Because he came in the image of God. Who? And he was formed in fashion. Actually, we're going to pull up some of this. We're going to look at some of this here. We want to see some of this. We're going to go to Philippians. We're going to go to Philippians chapter 2, picking it up at verse 8. Being formed in fashion, compared as a man, he humbled himself because God was resting in him. He had to humble himself, and God had to put in work through him. Are you following me? That's how this all works. The Spirit of God dwelleth in us for the very work's sake. If you don't believe him for the very work's sake, what David was doing. And he had to humble himself and became obedient unto death. So even unto death, you just stay obedient, even death of the cross. Bingo. Even of the suffering unto death that you will come up into. So it's saying this. Being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, which is the key you need. So being a prophet of God, breathing life back into his people, walking them awaken them up from this watery grave knowledge of death into the light. There is no robbery being equal to God speaking the words of God. You see that in verse 6. Who's being in the form of God thought it not right to be equal to God, because he's just speaking the words of God. You see how people jack this up? Just because he's speaking the words of God, people sitting there saying he's God, and it's not. He's just a prophet. A prophet don't mean nothing but a mouth of God. The anointed one to speak the words of God, not one who gonna speak lies. Oh, well, we the main people you need to pay attention to. No, it's not that. It's not that. But that's what people will get you to think. That's what people want you to think. You follow me? So that's why we have those issues there. That's why these issues continue. So now as we see this here, we see why we deal with these things. Let's go back to 1 Corinthians real quick. I'm going to go back to Corinthians 15 and pick it back up in the 40s. So why he's saying what he's saying. So the second Adam, the second man, is from the Lord. So the same as comparison showing you this in verse 48. It says, comparing is the earthly, such are they also are earthly. And comparing is heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. So the comparison is showing you the same thing. It's showing you the same thing. He tells this to you clearly here in verse 49. He says, and comparing, we bore the image of the earthly. We're in flesh. We should also bear the image of the heavenly, which is on the inside, which is actually doing the work. But the thing is, you don't let the earthly do the work and you having the heavenly in you, because it's not going to work. So what you have to do is you have to have God in you. You have to mortify your flesh as killing the flesh, and you, because that's the weight you have to put aside. You have to lay all that aside of you to get rid of it. Actually, let's look at some of this. I'm going to show you some of this to where we can see what's happening here. We're going to go to Hebrews chapter 12 and pick that up and look at verse 1. It says this. It says this to where we get a better understanding. It says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about such great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, those works of the flesh. Because works of the flesh is where we get screwed up. So you follow me? This is what screws us up. So we have to lay aside those weights, and because why? And the sin which do so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Because once you can get that works of the flesh off you, now you can run freely and do the works of God. And we have to do this. So we carrying. So it's like you carrying dead weight on you everywhere you go, because you're going to mortify the works of the flesh. So since you're going to mortify flesh, you carrying this dead weight around. Let's dig a little bit more and get better understanding on what we're talking about. Let's get a better understanding of what we're talking about here. In Matthew chapter 10. And we're going to pick this up at verse 38. Just to get a better understanding. In verse 38 it says this. It says, and he that taketh not his cross, you don't take your own suffering unto death. You don't take your own flesh and you dealing with that and follow after me is not worthy of me. He's making this clear. You are going to suffer this unto death. So we have to take this thing, which we're going to find out some things that's really peculiar on what we need to be doing. Let's look at this as a whole. Let's look at this as a whole. Let's look at this here. We're going to go to Colossians, picking it up at chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 13 now. And it says this. It says, in you. And I want everybody to remember it's talking about you. It said, in you being dead in your sins, because we dead in sins, we know this flesh is on us. In the uncircumcision of your flesh, have he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespass. Do you know how beautiful that is? So we had to do something. Watch how he says this in verse 14. It says, blotting out the handwriting and ordinances that was against us, because it's against the flesh. But he's looking up on the heart based on how you follow the laws. That's why I tell you that in Jeremiah 31:33. He wrote it upon your heart. He's not looking upon what is written against, which is the flesh, but we mortifying the flesh. I want you to catch that. He tells you that Paul's schooling us on that all the time. Mortify the deeds of the flesh. Mortifying that so we can blot out this handwriting of ordinances that is against us, because it's against the flesh, but we mortify the flesh. He can't be against you because you're not using it. And which was contrary to us, because it's contrary because we want to do the works of God, and took it out the way and nailing it to his cross, his own suffering unto death. You ain't going to feed it nothing. You're just going to let it die. Now, he's saying this in verse 15. It says, and having spoiled principalities and powers. That is where he is not. I'm talking about when you can sit there and do something like that, that's serious. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tear some of this, just tell you what he's actually saying. But he's saying, and you spoiled principalities and powers and made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. That's a Mike Tyson moment. That's what that's saying. By spoil, meaning you done stripped them of it, because that's what spoils are. You done took something. Spoil, you done stripped them, and the principalities is the authorities. And it's saying in the powers. Why is it saying powers? It's a way of life. You done stripped it. And you show it openly. So this is why people will have problems when you sitting there. You say, I'm a follower of Christ, and you don't do those things that's which is according to the flesh, and they got an issue with you. Why? Because you done spoiled, you done stripped that out, and you didn't, them authority, you don't think about it. So they got an issue with you. They still under bondage, and they want you under bondage. They want you to stay under that same bondage they under. That's why they say that same saying, you know, you see that crab coming out the bucket and another crab pulling right back in there. Same thing. Same identical thing. But let's move down a little bit. We're going to go to verse 16. And this is another verse where people, they screw you up on it, because you let them talk you out of things which is true. And it says, let no man for that reason judge you in meat. Wow. Or in drink, or in respect of a holy day. not a holiday, holy day. They use holiday. God used holy day. Or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days. He's checking people. He's checking people. Why? Actually, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something. We're going to go right back here. I want to sit there. We're going to pull up something. We're going to go to Daniel. Pick it up at chapter 7. And we're going to sit there and see, because why he's saying you don't judge them based on that. And we're going to see why. Because it's telling you right here. It says in Daniel chapter 7, picking up at verse 25, it says, he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, holidays that were holy days, and they shall be given unto his hand until the time and dividing of times. A lot of people going to get caught up. A lot of people going to get caught up on this. You got people going to celebrate all kinds of crazy stuff. And they change the time. So when you sitting there where you taught of me, and it says for that reason, taught you in knowledge or in drink or respect of holy days, or new moons. You don't let no man therefore judge you or teach you differently, because they're going to change it. It's clear today. But let's look at verse 17. Let's look at verse 17. Because he says a little bit more. He says, which are a shadow of things to come. End of the thought, but the body is of Christ. He already said he hate our feast days and our holy days. He already tells you he hates those. So why are we sitting there playing this game with him? Are you with me? Let's look at this, baby. Let's look at verse 18. You see, it's going back into a man again. He just said this in verse 16. But chapter 6, let no man therefore judge you, but watch this. Let no man beguile you for your reward in a voluntary humility and worship of angels. Let me do this. I gotta do this one. Worshiping of angels, messengers, meaning of who? Men. That's what he's talking about right here. And you have people, no matter what, is going to worship men. They'll say, oh, no, I don't worship him. I don't worship him. You give him some money? No, I don't give him the money, but I support the church. Guess what? You worshiping a man. Oh, but I don't give it to him. I just give the money just for the church. Yeah, you worship a man. The Bible tells you you can't give out of necessity. And if he's sitting there saying the church needs the money and you giving it, you worshiping a man. You got donation buttons all on the side. You worshiping a man. He's a God to you. You said, oh, he's not my God. He's a God to you. People dislike when you just being really blunt and straightforward to that. But that's what he is to you. You don't want to take that, but that's what he is. He's a God to you. He can tell you yay or nay. He's a God. In worshiping of angels, intruding unto those things which he have not seen, vainly puffed up by his, you see right there? That's why it's telling you, his fleshly mind. Angels, as in spirit angels, don't have flesh. You get the point? See, that's why people, well, no, it don't say that. No, it's telling you right there. So now angel got fleshly mind? Really? Really? Well, we need everybody to give up a couple of $100. I seen this plot of land. They want $10 million for it, so we need to raise money because God has showed me that we should be put this here where people can come and hear the word of God. That's a man vainly puffed up to get you to put up money to where he want a church to where he can bring in more flies to build more S. Vainly puffed up. Vainly puffed up. That's why it tells you that here. We go back over here to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Picking it up at verse 50. He says, knowing this, I say, brethren, flesh and blood with these fleshly minds cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither do corruption inherit incorruption. That's why he's so clear. It's clear as day. But we going to continue to look at these things. We got to go into these scriptures. We got to tear these scriptures down and put it up on precept upon precept to make sure that there's no contradiction in the Bible on our thoughts. See, because that man with that fleshly mind vainly puffed up, I'm going to show you exactly what's going on. We're going to look at Numbers chapter 23. Chapter 23. We're going to go over, park over here at verse 19. And he says this so clear. God is not a man. People tell you, you go into church, they say he was 100% God, he was 100% man. It's telling you, God is not a man. He was 100% God, he was 100% man. God is not a man. Jesus was God. Okay. Where was Mary? Because Mary birthed him in the New Testament. So where's Mary in the back? Where's Mary? Mary needs to go show up somewhere. Actually, she need to get Joseph over there too. God is not a man that he should lie. Because with his own vainly puffed up thoughts, ignorant thoughts, he gonna lie. And it says God is not a man that he's going to lie. Because he can't. He says, this way clears it up right here. Neither the Son of Man. So the Son of Man meaning what? He didn't come from Mary. So Mary didn't birth God. Or somebody want to say he is the Son of God. He was a servant of God. But it's telling you right here, he is not God. That he should repent, that he should remember. Hath he said and shall not do it, or hath he spoken and shall not make it good? Man with those little G's, they can't do none of this what you just read. None of it. Not one single solitary of it. Actually, I'm gonna tell you what, let's run something. I'm gonna show you something. We're gonna run through this. We're gonna look at this in 1 Kings. Show you something. We're gonna look at something here. We're going to go over here to 1 Kings. Just thought about this. Let me see this here. We're going to 1 Kings 18. We're going to go to, I believe, 21. We're going to go to 21. We're going to roll this down. Show you something. Differences where people want to sit there and talk about gods. People want to talk about gods. But let's look at something. So it's in Elijah. So Elijah means my God is the Spirit of God. That's what that actually means. Elijah. People are going to tell you all kind of stupid stuff, all kind of ignorant stuff, but I'm just telling you plainly what it just means. So it's telling you this, in which he's going to prove to them that his God is the Spirit of God. And he says this, and he came into all the people and said, how long have ye been between two opinions? meaning opinions mean you having divided thoughts. So if the Spirit of God be God, follow him. But providing Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Let's go down. Then Elijah said unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet. So there's only one walking around on the earth. Him. Period. During this particular time. Him. He says this, I remain of the Spirit of God, but Baal prophets are 450 men. He's giving you some clear, bare facts on what's going on. So he says something. He says, let them, for that reason, give us 2 bullocks. So I want y'all to get 2 bullocks. And let them choose. Not me. Let them choose one of the bullocks for themselves and cut it in pieces and lay it on wood and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under. Y'all with me? Because Elijah, I'm telling you right now, Elijah's really hot. He's really hot, but he has to be cool. He has to be cool. But watch what happens. Watch what happens. Because it actually gets kind of funny, but Elijah is really upset. And he called ye on the name of your God. So you can call on the name of your God. Them little G's. Same as them dudes calling themselves God. You can call on these guys that y'all done made. Because you can make them out of image or you can make them out of people. And I will call on the name of the Spirit of God. And the God that answereth by fire, let him be God. See, he put a catch in there. So, and all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. Oh yeah. You want to? Okay, bro. You don't know what you just did. We got you. We got this dude. How you said in the White Man Can't Jump. We going to Sizzler. We going to Sizzler. Yeah, cause we got him. Okay. So Elijah said, okay, go ahead, bro. This is what's gonna go down. So Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you one of the bullocks for yourselves. Dress it first, for ye are many, and call on the name of your gods. You see, gods, but put no fire under it. So don't put no fire under it, bro. But just call on whoever you want to call on. He goes down. I gotta go down a little bit more. So he goes down. And they took the bullock, and it was given to them, and they took and dressed it and called upon the name of Baal from the morning until noon. They done called on him all day, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered, and they leaped on the altar which was made. Going to church, you'll see them doing that. Jumping up and down, acting a fool. Trying to call Baal. Acting a fool. In church. You see people get up in church and they just dance around, just dance in a circle, or just, moving their feet up and down. Baal. Baal at his best. Go down a little bit more. And it says, and it came to pass at noon, Elijah mocked them. Now Elijah talking trash. Now he's talking trash. He mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is God. You see, he's mocking him. Hey, bro, he's God. Man, call upon him, man. Call upon him. Get him, bro. Either he is talking, or bro, he might be talking to one of those honeys on Facebook. Go get him, bro. Or he's pursuing, or he's taking out some other gods. He could be taking out, he's pursuing, destroying other gods, because that's all that means. Pursuing is destroying other gods that's coming there. You don't think You don't think he's mocking them. But watch this. Or he's in a journey, or peradventure he's sleeping and must be awake. Bro, he could be asleep. Wake his butt up, man. Get him up. Get him up. That's why I tell people, you go give me your little 3-headed God, I want to kill him. Same thing. Same type of mocking. And you get some more. And they cried aloud and cut themselves. Bingo. After the manner of their knives and latches till blood gushed out upon them. The same way these dudes like to get in these little sororities and they brand themselves to their God, to this Greek God. Phi Alpha Beta Kappa. All foolish. Branded yourselves to a God. To blood gushes out upon them. But it gets better. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. So they did this all day. And there was neither voice nor to answer nor anything that regarded. They didn't get anything. So now it's Elijah's turn. So I hate to laugh, but Elijah kind of a crack up on what he did. He's kind of a crack up what he did. So Elijah said unto all the people, come near. Yeah, come here, y'all. I need y'all to do something for me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Spirit of God, that it was broken down. Remember, they were jumping up on it. Doing all this crazy stuff. So Elijah said, we got to repair it, because now it's my turn. So he's not going to use that same bullock. That's why he needed 2 different bullocks. Because once you done did that to that, whatever you want to do it to, God don't want that. He want this one. So first thing Elijah did is this. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Spirit of God came. You see this? He's telling you right up front what he did. And saying, Israel shall be thy name. So he's making some things clear. Verse 32. And when the stones were built on the altar, the name of the Spirit of God, and he came at a trench about the altar, comparing would contain 2 measures of seed. So it's pretty big. In verse 33, we're going to go down as he's still doing it. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces and laid him on the wood and said, now he didn't tell them to do this, but I want you to see the arrogance of Elijah on how Elijah rose. Elijah said this. He said, fill 4 barrels with water. Hey, bro, go get 4 barrels, fill them up with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice. This is what he's telling them to do. Fill these 4 barrels and fill it up and put it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. So now they're going to soak the wood and soak in the burnt sacrifice. So now the wood ain't going to burn. But that's okay. We're going to go to verse 34. And he said, do it again. Do it the second time. And they did it the second time. And he said, do it the third time. Now, you know, everything is just trenched with water. Just soaked with water. Wood in it. You ain't burning nothing up. And they did it a third time. Now, he got more cocky. Who? Elijah. And water ran around and about the altar, and they filled the trench also with water. So now the trench is filled with water. Everything's filled up with water. The wood is soaked. The burnt sacrifice is soaked with water. The altar is soaked with everything soaked up. So it came to pass, at the time of the offering and the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Spirit of the God of Abraham, Isaac, the Spirit of the God, and of Israel, let it be known. See, that's the cold part. He don't say it the way everybody else says it. He said, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel. He says it a cold-blooded way. Let it be known. And that I am thy servant. You don't see him saying son. No, I'm your servant. So you let this be known today. In that I done all these things at thy word. So I did all this, not according to what I wanted to do. I did it according to what you wanted me to do. You see, he's saying it right there. I have done all these things at thy word. So who was doing the mocking? God. He said he'll mock you in your calamity. He did the mocking. So the same thing, he said, soak it up. Soak it up. So you're going to go down. And now he says, hear me, O Spirit of God. Hear me, and the people may know that thou art the Spirit of thy God, and that thou hast turned their hearts back again. So he said, I need you to turn these people's heart back again. I ain't thinking about the prophets. I just want you to turn the people back. So the Most High had to put in some work. So then, verse 38, a fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust and licked up the water that was in the trench. Licked it up. Everything gone. Everything, ain't nothing there. He didn't do it. Ain't no more. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces. Can't do nothing. Because that fire came out of heaven. Fell on their faces. The Spirit of God, he is God. The Spirit of God, he is the God. Why is all this being said this way? And why am I showing you this? To make you know something. To make sure you know something. Because I did that just to show you something, to make sure you clearly get something. He's letting you know he is God and you have to be worshiping a God. But when you go here to Isaiah chapter 42 and we pick it up at verse 8, he makes some stuff very clear to everyone. I am the Spirit of God. That is my name. In my glory, I want you to clearly get this. I will not give to another. So these fools running around talking about their gods, he will not give his glory to another, neither my praise to graven images of a man, of a piece of wood, of a rock, of a piece of gold. I'm not giving it to nothing. You following him? Let's look at something. So he's making himself clear. And I promise you got some fools out there still gonna sit there. Oh yeah, we got, but I guarantee you, they ain't gonna run through no stuff. They're gonna get you. They're gonna talk to you, and some people gonna sit right there and be boo-boo the fool and follow it. I promise you that, because you got a lot of fools out there. You got more fools than people that with intelligence. Most people don't know that either. So the same thing is this here. Fear not them which kill the body. Don't fear the man and not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy the body, destroy both the body and the, the soul and the body in hell. You following him? Let's look at verse 43. Chapter 43. And we go park right over here at verse 7. Because he says this again. Same chapter, same book, Isaiah, different chapter. Even everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. You ain't created for you going to be equal to a God. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. I think he's pretty clear. And he made him to where you do the work of him. So you got people calling themselves that, but he didn't create you for the glory of being basketball or football or tennis stars. He didn't create, no, he created you for his glory. He's clear about what he's doing. But people sit there, oh no, that's why people going around, oh man, this dude's a God. This dude's a God. No, he's not. No, he's not. But you'll sit there and you'll call anybody a God. Same people that you buy, you can sell ice to Eskimo. In 1 Chronicles chapter 16, and picking it up at verse 22, he tells you this right up front. Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. These people is appointed, and including all their actions and what they need to be doing. So one must be obedient to God. Meaning this. Let's look at this. Let's look at this as a whole. Isaiah chapter 60. Chapter 60. And we're going to look at this again in verse 21. And pull this, and it says this. It says, thy people also shall be all righteous. See, you got people just running out there just calling themselves we're gods. No, he said, thy people also shall be all righteous. I want you to keep that in mind. You got people out there making people do unruly things, taking people for all their money. Give all your money to me, and you will stay with me, and you're going to inherit the kingdom of God. They shall inherit the land forever, and the branch of my planting, the work of my hand, that I may be glorified. Are you with me? See, this is what you have to really look at as a whole. And hopefully as we winding this down, we're going to go to second address, and we're going to pick this up at chapter 8, just as we're winding this down. We're going to go to 48. I want to show you something. 48, it says, in this also, thou art marvelous before the Most High. But I want you to pay attention by what I'm getting ready to read for you. And it says, in that thou hast humbled thyself. You have to humble yourself. Comparing it becometh thee, and has not judged thyself worthy to be much glorified among the righteous. But he's going to say something else. He's going to say something else. Because a lot of us is like wild horses. A lot of us is like wild horses in comparison. Carrying our own doctrines. So we have to humble ourselves just like a horse. This is the point on what he's talking about. That's why when a lot of us walking with our own doctrine, we have to humble ourselves. And stop trying to walk with our own doctrines. And why it tells you the same thing over here from 6 to 8. Whose being in the form of God thought it not right to be equal to God, but made himself of no reputation, took upon him the form of a servant, and made in the likeness of men, being formed fashion as a man, humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Stop walking around with your own doctrine. We are gods. That's stupidity. Right out bona fide stupidity. And it says this in verse 50. And it says, for many great missionaries shall be done to them, so shall many great miseries shall be done to them, that in latter time shall dwell in the world, because they walk in great pride. Exactly the point. You walking in pride. This is what a lot of us do. And they continually do this. But understand for thyself, and seek out of glory, for such comparing be like thee. You see how he's laying this out. You're not doing nothing new under the sun. Who's the people who does this? And it says, for unto you is paradise open. The tree of life is planted. The time to come is prepared. Plenteous is made ready. A city is built and rest in allowed, yea, perfect goodness and wisdom. But if you're going to play this little dumb game, you got a problem. We're created in the image of God. And it tells you right there, it says paradise. Why? It says, and unto you is paradise. That's heaven. It's open. That's why it's saying paradise open. Heaven is open unto you. Why is it saying that? Because it tells you this right here. It's open to you. Picking this up right here, Revelation chapter 22, picking it right up at verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they have a right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates of the city. This paradise is now open because that city is being built. So we have to remember who we are and what we are. In Isaiah chapter 44, we're picking up at verse 21. We need verse 21. Just go down and pick this up. And you see even how he starts it off. He says, remember these. Remember these. And in the same I tell Israel, we just remember some of these things that went on. Just remember it. If you wrote it down, meditate on them. Remember these, O Jacob and Israel. For thou art my servant. He's telling you right up front what and who you are. And you are created for his glory, to where he can work through you. I have formed thee, and thou art my servant. He has to tell us this twice. O Israel, thou shalt not be forgotten of me. But some of us fills in the perfect part of Isaiah 1:3. Ox nor of his, actually, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you just so we can, just thinking about it. I just want to make sure we understand it. Just so we can understand it. Because besides saying it, better to see it. And same thing he says here. And if we understand it, it says, an ox know of his owner, as his master crib, but Israel do not know, my people do not consider that we are serving. We think we're gods. We think we're gods. Look at it this way. Look at it this way. I want to show you something. We're going to look at Luke, and we're going to look at Luke chapter 16. We're going to go over to verse 13. And actually, highlight. It says, no servant can serve two masters. So you can't serve flesh and spirit. It's impossible. You cannot serve flesh and you're going to serve spirit. It's the same with a man and his wife, or a wife with a husband. You cannot serve two men. And the same as with that, you're going to sit there and you're going to serve God. So you're going to serve one husband, not two husbands, not three husbands, not four husbands. You're going to serve one wife, not two wives, not three wives, not four wives. You're going to serve one. You cannot serve, it says, you cannot serve two masters. Either you're going to hate one and love the other, or you will hold to one and despise the other. You're going to be speaking evil. You cannot serve God and mammon. It's not, you can't do this. But they'll sit there and tell you they are gods. So Israel was created for the glory of God, not for the glory of men. Actually, better yet, let's see if we can understand this way. Let's see if we can take it a little bit closer. Let's see if we can take it a little bit closer. We're going to go back to 15, 1 Corinthians 15, and let's pick it up at verse 39. And hopefully we can get this there. It says 39, it says, all flesh is not the same flesh. All flesh is not the same flesh. Some flesh, actually it says, but there is one kind of flesh for men, another for fish, another for fish, another for birds. Why? Because I'm going somewhere with this. I want to take you somewhere with this. Because I'm going to show you in verse 40. Taking you somewhere. And it says there are celestial bodies. Okay? Now you see what I'm talking. Some people see where I'm going now. There's celestial body and there's terrestrial body, but glory of the celestial is one and glory of the terrestrial is another. Why did I run you here? Because I want you to clearly understand what happened. When we look at Genesis chapter 1, let's go here again. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 1. And you look at verse 11, God said, let the earth bring forth grass and herbs yielding seed and fruit trees yielding fruit trees of its kind and the seeds of itself. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and fruit and trees yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. But he didn't give no constructions of it. So you have celestial body, you have terrestrial body, but this is a terrestrial body that's given to where you can actually see. But you'll see here in verse 27, it's telling you right here, well, we're starting 26, it says, God, let us make a man in our image and after our likeness. But people think this is talking about all people of the world, and that's not what that's saying. It was a parable, the way you can understand, because he needed this one people to be in the image of God. And he wanted them to have dominion over the fish, over the sea, over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth. And if you remember when we looked at Acts chapter 1, verse 6, it said, at this time will they return everything back to Israel. You see, because we supposed to have that dominion, but not with this rigor on what some of these people will sit there and try to profess. No, it's not the truth. It's not the truth. And he said, God created man in his own image. In the image God created he him, male and female created he them. So you have celestial bodies that was created. See, when you're looking at flesh as a whole, God is not the God of flesh. That's what people mix up, and people think, and it's not the truth. So when you look at everything as a whole, we start understanding things as a whole. So in Matthew chapter 22, picking it up at verse 32, it tells you this, and exactly what I said, what I just talked about. And he tells you this. It says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. You see, that's a question mark. He says, God is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. He's not God of the flesh. It's not the truth. He's the God of a spirit. He's the God of spirits. And he tells you these things to make sure you know those things. So that's why we need to understand what he's talking about here. we need to make sure what he's talking about when he does these things. So we have here, which we're going through, which we're looking through, we have to remember he created these things, and these things is created for his glory, and these glories is created for God. And it shows you this even here. Let's look at something. Let's look at part of this here. We're going to go to Psalms. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 50, and we're going to look at something. As we winding this down, we're going to look at Psalms chapter 50, picking up at verse 10, and it says, "For every beast of the forest is God's, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills belong to God." He goes on, he said, "God know all the fowls of the mountain, and all in the wild beasts of the field are God's." So, what is it saying? And it's in fullness. What is it saying in its fullness and what it's saying? In Haggai chapter 2, verse 8. "The silver is God's and the gold is God's, saith the Spirit of God of hosts." So, what do we need to remember out of all this here? What do we need to make sure we clearly get under everything about God? See, because he said something that was clear in the beginning, and that we should know on everything was God's. So that's the problem why I was showing you that. Same thing here where I showed you. Let's go back here. In Psalms chapter 50 and go back here. We just look at this and I want you to see something. As he said, he says, "For every beast of the forest is God's." Interesting, isn't it? And I say that for this, because when you look at Psalms, and we're going to go to Psalms, and let's look at something. We're going to go there again, and we're going to look at this last verse. We're going to go to 82. We're going to go to verse 6. So when you see this, you can see the error with people seeing. It's saying here, "I have said, ye are God's." You belong to God. You was created for the glory of God. Ye belong to God. That's why I said ye are God's. And that's why, and all of you are children of the Most High. You belong to Him. But once He finished, your body is going to die like men and fall like princesses. That's all He's been saying the entire time. For every beast of the forest is God's. So if it belongs to God, ye are God's. You just belong to Him, is all He's saying, because we created for His glory. So we have a problem. We have a great big problem. We have men that's going out that's lying every which way to cause lies on God. So with this, And with all this that went on, hopefully that we will remember a lot of stuff that people say and what people do when they go out and they teach these lies, saying about these things about God, that they are gods. It's nothing more than a double doctrine. So hopefully in the future that you see these things, you can recognize, you can closely look at and know that they're speaking of something that's not a God. I want to have a quick meeting with my deacons and elders after this, where we can go into the teams, and it has a deacons and elders room. I want us to go in there real quick before we get started up with Proverbs, as well as this week I will be doing another teaching based on envy and jealousy. I will be doing the teachers later on this week on envy and jealousy, which will help each and every person to recognize what those two are and how they work. So look out for that teaching, and that will not be on King James Bible University. That will be done right here in the house of the Lost Sheep of Israel. And I'm going to try to make sure that we have some material that you can download and you can get. So with that, the same as we're going to do, we're going to leave here. But real quick, I want to meet with my deacons and elders in the deacon and elder room. And then after that, we'll be going into Proverbs at 11 o'clock. And normally it's the same as always. I will be doing our Romans on tomorrow, which is actually going to be extremely important teaching, which is going to go out tomorrow. And then on Monday, I will be doing the children's King James Bible University. And later on in the week, I will be doing that other teaching that I spoke about. So with that, I say to each and every person, until next time, I say,